It seemed to never end, but what really inspired me through all of this is the way in which our public and our residents responded. They had empathy, they wanted to know what they could do to help. They had confidence in the county and the science and the things that we were putting out about how people could protect themselves. It was just one of those moments where we could not only be really proud of the county's response, but really proud of our residents' responses. And one of the things that most people didn't think about during COVID is all those things I just mentioned were challenges that we faced, but the biggest one that people haven't really talked about is we have in the county staff nearly 14,000 people, not counting schools. We're one of the largest employers in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So one of the biggest challenges we had was keeping our employees motivated, coming to work, delivering services for people where the service level and need of the community was really higher than we had ever seen before, even in normal times. And so we had the same challenges with workforce that everybody else had, but I'm really proud of our county workforce for what they were able to do and kept showing up to work and kept responding to calls for service, and that should inspire all of us to be supportive of them as well, because they did an excellent job. And we reflected that in the last budget. Appreciate the input that you all had in the last budget, but I think we put together a very good budget. These are difficult economic times, so the skyrocketing assessments, we knew we had to address that by reducing the rate to provide tax relief, expand tax relief for seniors who were qualified before, but try to increase the pool of qualified people so that seniors could afford to stay in their homes was an important part of our budget. But we had to do all of that after we knew we could address compensation for our employees, because it's hard. All of you know how hard it is to find workers right now and to get them to come back to work. So we had to do that. We had to fully fund our school system because they were having the same issues, challenges with teachers, and we're worried about making sure we can fully reopen schools again next year and have the resources and the teachers in place to help kids who had learning loss be able to respond to that. And so we did a lot of great things in this last budget, and what I think is a very balanced way that respects people's economic challenges, but also builds in programs and opportunities to help the county fully respond to COVID. We're not out of this, as you all know. What concerns me today, looking forward, is obviously mental health issues in the community that are at an all-time high. We get very little help from the state in mental health, so we're on our own again as a county. So how we address the mental health needs of our community, how we catch our kids up for the learning loss that they've experienced, how we monitor future variants and other things that we're hearing about in the news and make sure that we're giving people good information about health and what they can do to protect each other. These are things that are on my mind constantly as we're looking at recovery. And then, of course, our economy is recovering well. Businesses are, getting revenue again. They have customers in there. Hotels are full across the county after being empty for long periods of time. And people are coming here with confidence that this is a healthy place to be, in large part because of what we did during COVID. And so I feel very optimistic as we move forward. I've told people this before, that in terms of COVID recovery, there will be few places in the country that will recover completely as fast as we're able to here and as equitably as we're able to do here. Because one thing that COVID did point out is there are still some huge disparities in our community. Income disparities, cultural disparities, access to medical treatment, vulnerabilities that we need to be cognizant of. And the way we responded to COVID is the way we need to operate as a county government, period. We need to look at where are those vulnerable areas and how can we address them. Certainly, in COVID, we learned that a lot of people don't have safe, affordable housing. And so we need to constantly be working on providing more safe, affordable housing for folks. We know some people don't have access to health care. So how do we expand our health care and continue to look at free vaccinations and other things that are in all of our interests to provide to our community? And then lastly, as I mentioned, our county employees. Our county employees got good compensation increases in this budget. But we need to take care of all the other workers in the county that are essential to our well-being. And some of you have heard me say this before, but police, firefighters, our county heroes all the time, people in military service. But one thing we learned during COVID is there's a lot of other heroes in the community too, like the people who check us out at the grocery store, the people who deliver food, the people who do home health care. A lot of those folks who never could stop working during COVID and working to make sure that we had the resources and needs that our community had met. Those are new heroes, and those are unfortunately the people that are having a very difficult time right now finding affordable housing and living in Fairfax County. So affordable housing will continue to be a priority of the board as we recover. And then lastly, obviously the environment. Climate change I think is on all of our minds. We had a meeting the other day talking about extreme heat, the extreme heat that we just had a couple of days ago, how that affects our vulnerable population, the amount of money we spend in storm cleanups, and some of the things that are happening in the environment I think have all of us concerned in trying to build ourselves a more resilient Fairfax, and making sure everybody understands what they can do to pitch in and help is going to continue to be messaging from the board too, as we're tackling so many challenges in the county. But it's a time to feel good about where we are, especially what we've been through. A time to feel confident that the county government continues to be among the best managed governments in the country, and will continue to be that way, and a time to feel confident that our economy is responding and recovering well. And just keep praying that there are no more COVID variants and other things that could cause us to fall backwards. But rest assured, if that does happen, we'll be ready for it. We were one of the only counties in the country that had a pandemic response plan already written before the pandemic hit. And after what we went through years ago with some of the challenges with, some of the it actually started with anthrax, believe it or not, but Ebola, some of the other things that happened. We took the time ahead of time. We said if we had a massive pandemic in the county, wouldn't it be nice to have a guide in how to respond to that? And lo and behold, people thought it sat on the shelf, we pulled it out. We used that to respond to this pandemic, and so that's how we try to plan ahead in advance for things so that we can minimize impacts to the community. So with that, I'm going to wrap up because I probably have talked too long anyway. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Yes?
With regard to the health department, and a lot of people are talking about not getting shots and vaccinations and stuff like that. Has the health department noticed anything with regard to all the non-COVID, but the other shots and the other inoculations that the kids have to go in at elementary school, measles and mumps, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And then there's another one they got to get at 6th grade or something.
Right.
But have they seen a lot of pushback to those shots? They've seen because of what has happened with the pushback at COVID?
Yeah, no, so one of the things is our kids, before the announcement yesterday about younger kids, and before the announcement for 5 and above, our older kids in FCPS, 95% vaccination rate for COVID. Remarkable. One of the highest in the country. And so we had a very positive response. We didn't want to test, hey, how do parents feel about vaccinations? Let's see how many do it. But we did just have this test, and 95% of our kids got the COVID vaccine. So we have not had the same pushback. But I will say that there are still people who, while they went and got that vaccine, weren't visiting their pediatrician or other doctor because they thought it was risky. And so what we have done in talking with the health department is every year in advance of the school year, we run vaccination clinics for people, especially in parts of the county where income might be a big barrier for people getting proper vaccinations. And so we have already, health department has already ordered more supply and are going to be staffing those up much larger levels than we've done in the past, just because we want to make sure people have that access and can register their kids and get them to school. And so I don't think we'll have a lot of problems, but I do think there are a number of kids who may be backed up on vaccinations just because of safety concerns they had with going to their regular doctor during COVID. So we're keeping an eye on that. Yes?
I'm Patrick Smolder. I'm the Public Safety Chair. And through Suridhar, we got you our resolution on what to do with the police department, and he has offered my services to you if you need them.
Oh, good. Yep. Thank you. I always like those offers. So thank you.
Implementation.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. Yes.
Past president, past vice president of the Federation for the last decade. With the incoming Amazon and Boeing, what's the impact on affordable housing within our county?
Well, first, we've never grown our affordable housing stock more than this board has in the last 2.5 years. I mean, we have upwards of 4,000 affordable units already under construction or in the pipeline in Fairfax County just in the last 2.5 years. Those are new units, new construction. That's not preservation. That's almost 4,000 brand new units that didn't exist before. In terms of Amazon and Boeing, I mean, neither one of them, of course, are located in Fairfax County. But we know as a region, we have to look at affordable housing from a regional standpoint. And so we're going to be watching very carefully. I have confidence in the Arlington County Board, frankly, to put requirements in for affordable housing and be doing affordable housing. It's a priority of theirs. But we operate as a region, and so I can't absorb, all the affordable housing challenges of parts of our region that aren't building affordable housing. And I say that, as a statement, but in reality, the mayors and chairs of Northern Virginia in particular, and through COG, through the Council of Governments, largely the entire DMV area, I would say politically have never been more aligned in our desire to build affordable housing now than ever before in this region. So the parochialism is gone. It's actually now a competition to see who can build the most affordable housing units the quickest. And I do say, and my counterparts in Arlington and Alexandria, if they were here, would reluctantly have to agree that we're killing them when it comes to affordable housing. I mean, they want to know how we're able to do some of the things that we're able to do. The recent Dominion Square announcement in Tysons, a ton of that is being financed by Amazon. And so that's different than the Amazon money that's going into Arlington and some of their affordable housing needs. And so, I think we overemphasize some of these big employers sometimes, and we forget that the largest employment base in the county is a lot of the smaller businesses in the county too. So we don't get too over alarmed when one big business comes, because it's small potatoes compared to all the other employers combined. And it's not going to stop us from, building as much affordable housing as quickly as we can, and most importantly, in all over the county and in strategically smart places. We don't want to build affordable housing in places that aren't accessible to transit, aren't near good jobs, or in the same pockets of the county where affordable housing was the only place it was allowed to be built for too many decades in the county. We're done with that model. Affordable housing needs to be built in all corners of the county, and specifically in areas where there's transit and job opportunities. And that's a position I could say almost uniformly our board supports, and we'll make sure that that's what we're doing. And if you map out where those almost 4,000 units I mentioned are, you map them out in the county, you'll see distinct, obvious evidence that that's what we're doing as a board now. They're all over the county. And that's really important, not only for the climate, but just it's a moral imperative, it's an economic imperative, it's a climate imperative that we do that. And we're going to keep working at it.
Do you have a forecast in terms of what the demand would be for affordable housing? Because part of the problem because I've dealt with it, during my Residents Unions Association times, and even now a little bit from the outside. The problem is the income, level as well, right? Because of the high income levels in Fairfax County, even though they are classified as affordable housing, in reality, for the lower income, people that work in restaurants, they just can't afford to live in such affordable housing. So how do we? Is there a plan to address that?
Yeah,
expansion of the demand.
Yeah, there's a couple plans. One is our affordable housing. The affordable housing I just mentioned in terms of the new units that are being built goes all the way down to 30% AMI. It used to be affordable housing, new affordable housing like that wasn't heavily federally subsidized would be at 60 or 80% or above AMI. We're having it now. Dominion Square is coming in with units at 30% AMI to meet, some of the lowest income levels in the county. But the other piece of it is when you get below 30% AMI, we have a lot of other housing programs. I'm just mentioning the pipeline of new units, but that's where you start to, become eligible for federal supports and House Choice voucher programs and other things that, cycle through the federal government. But in terms of forecast, we are so far behind in home construction, period. People don't like to hear this, but it's true. We are so far behind that all we know is we need a ton of it for a long period of time to catch up. The business community will tell you that we're 20,000 housing units behind potential job growth in this region. 20,000. So that being 20,000 units, market rate units behind schedule, is what's causing the prices of all the other housing to go up. It's an obvious supply and demand thing, and so we're very worried about that. But I would say that we need to make sure we have housing in all of those AMI categories, and so when we're looking at new development, new units being built, we have that spectrum in. And I'll tell you just this one other thing, because I think it's a stunning statistic. People focus on how much money the county board puts into affordable housing in the budget. But what they don't realize is that's a pittance compared to how that dollar gets stretched. So for every dollar we put into affordable housing in the county, by partnering with all of these other developers that I just mentioned, building affordable housing, nonprofits like APA and Good Shepherd Housing and these nonprofits, we stretch that $1 into $13 in value of affordable housing. And so that's the totality of the commitment to affordable housing when we partner with some of these other groups. If the county built it itself, it'd be $1 to $1. Because of the partnerships we have, it's $1 to 13, and that's one of the reasons why we don't always get everything we want in terms of AMI. But if we can get it to pencil out and stretch our dollar further and serve more families, we're going to do it that way, just because it makes sense to do that.
Do you have some thoughts or plans or programs about how to slow down the tear downs of affordable housing to put up more expensive housing?
Yeah, I mean, part of our housing strategy is preservation. And so the funding that we put in for the new unit construction comes out of the same funding sources that we have in the county for preservation. And so we always will look at, especially if a property is proposed to be redeveloped, one, in the redevelopment, can you capture the units that are being lost and then add some as a starting point? Two, can you preserve part of the development and will even allow more density in the other part of the parcel to make up for that? But there are preservation plans. If you look at the comprehensive plan, the model preservation language in the comprehensive plan is in the Embark Richmond Highway corridor plan that we just rewrote, because obviously there's high concentrations of affordable housing there. There's large concerns that with the redevelopment of the bus rapid transit and all the other things happening on the highway, that a whole bunch of people who have lived there for a long time are going to get pushed out. So there's very aggressive plan language in there of no net loss of units through development, and then growth of new units through the workforce housing requirements that are in the zoning ordinance. And so,
I'm talking more about like infill that doesn't come under a comprehensive plan.
yeah, well, the thing with infill, as you know, is it's by right in most cases, and by right means what it is by right, which means we have to follow the state law and give people their vested land rights and make sure that going through the process they meet the zoning ordinance requirements.
That's where you can.
But I will say this, one of the things that we did, and a lot of people didn't like it, but I'm telling you, long term people will be thanking us for it, is when we redid the zoning ordinance through ZMOD and we allowed accessory dwelling units to be established in single family neighborhoods. People hated it. They thought people were going to be running apartments in the middle of neighborhoods, but there are a lot of people in this county who are living in an oversized house. They don't want to move. They can't afford it, and there's a ton of people looking for affordable housing. So this idea that somehow you can't rent out your basement to young people looking for affordable housing, or 2 or 3 unrelated seniors can't legally live together to share costs and share resources, is absurd, to me. And we put in place a very bold new zoning ordinance that allows accessory dwelling units to be in single family neighborhoods. And that's controversial in a lot of places, but it's the future. It's the future in terms of housing affordability, because there's a lot of overbuilt homes in the county that are way larger than people need. And there's a lot of people in the county that don't want to move out of those. And by the way, if we want to prevent some of the tear downs and other things that are happening in the county, you want to keep those people in their homes as long as you can, because most of those happen when someone sells their house and moves on. And then you see this 1,200 square foot house torn down, and you see this 8,000 square foot house built displaced. Part of that is because people can't afford to maintain their home anymore, and they sell it for top dollar, and they have a right to do that, and the buyer has a right to file a plan and come through the county and build a home on it. But I think the accessory dwelling unit expansion will help with a lot of that problem, because we're incentivizing people to stay in their homes, and if they can't afford to, we're giving them options to maximize the use of their home and at the same time provide affordable housing for someone who needs it.
Is there a lot of boomers who are not relinquishing their single-family homes that could take advantage of it? I mean,
I'm sure that there are. I mean, that's part of the
living
reason.
at home.
That's part of the reason we did it. Is to
Yeah,
give
there's
people
a lot of
options.
NIMBYs I'm very familiar with
There's a
that
lot.
issue. Yeah,
There's a lot of it.
issue.
Being
Yeah.
boomers.
It is. It has its challenges.
And we put in protections. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. We obviously don't want apartment buildings in the middle of residential neighborhoods. So there's protections in the ordinance. You know, to do that by right, you can't be changing anything on the outside of your house. You got to prove to the county if there's vehicles involved, they can be parked on your property so that the public street doesn't become a universal parking lot. I mean, there are plenty of protections in there for people, but they're reasonable things that people can meet. I mean, most people I talk to don't care how many people are living in a house if it's providing affordable housing, as long as on the outside it's not affecting them. And there's plenty of ways you can do that with safeguards in the ordinance to provide harmony in the single-family neighborhoods, and almost by flip of a switch, by putting ZMOD in place, almost by flip of a switch, you could double the amount of affordable housing in the county, potentially. And you know, at no risk here, at no new construction, no tear downs, no new developments, no high cost new developments, and so. You know, I think you're going to see every county in the country doing this over time.
Doesn't that
It's
impact
natural.
the school system and the capacity, the sewer system, the transportation system? When you double the capacity of the people who live here, have you doubled the school population?
Absolutely. There's no doubt that it'll impact infrastructure. There's no doubt about it, but no more so than what is already happening naturally. What we found is in most cases, we were putting people at enormous risk by not allowing accessory dwelling units because they were already doing it. The difference was they weren't getting the permits to do it, to install an extra stove or put in or get a test to make sure the utilities could handle it. They were doing it, going around the county and just doing it anyway. And so what we've done is said, that's not right. Let's legalize that. Let's make sure before one of these gets approved that it has the proper sewer connections and other connections. But look, we're 20,000 units plus behind job growth in this area. I mean, we can stop building housing, and then we can watch everybody literally get priced out of the county. If that's one route, you know, we could take. I just don't think that's the route that this community wants us to take. And will there be impacts on schools? There's impacts on schools anytime development occurs. Will there be huge impacts because of ZMOD? I doubt it, because there's a lot of communities in the county that don't have a lot of kids that once did. And now, in some ways, we're bringing kids back into these communities is a good thing for these neighborhoods and their neighborhood schools if you're a big supporter of neighborhood schools. And so I think there's some pluses, but clearly there's impacts. There's impacts to doing anything. The question is the county maintaining them, monitoring them, and having the foresight to be able to accommodate them? And that's an area in which I have a lot more confidence that is happening.
Before we let you go, Jeff, I'd like everybody to step. We're going to get a picture of everybody with Jeff. So everybody, why don't you walk up a little bit higher? And everybody come on in the picture. You can get in the picture too.
Oh no, I take the picture.
You can take it.
You can get it now. Take a picture.
This is the picture button that says photo.
Everyone's afraid of something.
Hopefully. Come on, everybody. Everybody, if you're here to join us. Come on, everybody, please. Come on.
You want to get in the
You got this? Yeah. Get in there. Not with better. Significant other.
Everybody, come on. Okay, see everybody. I'm gonna take a couple.
Okay.
1, 2.
Take about 4 or 5.
I hope it's taking it. I got them on my phone too.
All right.
What a
Got a
fantastic.
backup plan.
We'll call you about midnight, that'll be us.
Yeah, and he's got a backup
Pictures.
plan.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Very good.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you my email.